It doesn't take a lot to realize the economy is hurting right now. It's plainly obvious to most Americans. 74%, in fact, of Americans say the economy is in bad shape. That's most people, three-quarters. And it's even higher, Kevin. 84% say the economy is the top issue going into the midterm. So how does that impact the perception of the man in the Oval Office, you think? It's probably not pretty good.
Yeah, Tom, I think President Biden may have peaked too soon. His approval rating was inching up there at around 42 as a president who's getting things done. He got pandemic relief money out, the infrastructure bill, the CHIPS Act, the Inflation Reduction Act. The problem is all that action has led to the highest inflation in 40 years, rising food prices, gas prices, energy costs. The stock market is crashing. Interest rates are climbing. The economy is in or heading into a recession. Everyone's concerned, or at least three-quarters or more. A majority of Democrats actually want President Biden to retire after his first term. They want a new candidate in 2024. What will this mean for the midterms, though, which are just a few weeks away? And what about the wild card issue, abortion? Joining us now is Roshini, political strategist. Good morning, Roshini. How are you?
Good morning, Kevin. Wow, you really painted quite a dark laundry list there.
Lots of stuff here for your Crisis Files podcast.
Yes, exactly.
Well,
exactly.
So it looks like the president's numbers are inching down again, and I just have a sense that this has got to be about the economy. Interest rates going up worries people. Inflation is about as real of a problem as you can get. Is that your take as well?
Yeah, I mean, what do they say? It's the economy, stupid, right? Every sitting president has to worry about it and really look at all the optics surrounding anything related to people's pocketbooks, their very ability to pay their mortgage, buy food, and, house themselves and their children. So when you look at all of those items, every day people are waking up and seeing, okay, well, maybe gas dipped down a bit, but it's back up in general, or prices at the grocery are just astronomical. These are those basic things. So it doesn't even let people get to some of those luxury items or those extras that you look forward to in life. So those basic things are hurting. Someone wants to buy a new home or do a remodel. I have to say personally, I'm in the process of final approval on a remodel. I got approved, but now we're waiting to lock in a rate, and these rates keep on going up. So anybody, no matter your socioeconomic level, you're worried about something connected to your money. And that is never a good idea for the majority party or the sitting president's party to be thinking about going into a midterm. And then overall, 2 years from now, the general election. So, Tom, you mentioned some stats. I think some of the worst percentages for Biden right now are that 65% of his own party is considering removing him from the ticket. I mean, that's worse than a president's current approval rating. Just even like down the line, here's how bad this looks for you, Biden. We just want you to retire. I mean, go out on some kind of note, but don't make us remove you, sort of a thing. That's not a good narrative.
So Democrats are in charge in the House and the Senate, and they have the White House. Does the House and Senate take the blame on the economy, or does it all go at the president, and Democrats in the House and Senate somehow survive in the midterms in 4 weeks?
Well, the president really shouldn't get all the blame. I looked up some numbers on our current Congress. Only 23% of the U.S. approves of Congress. That means 75% in this particular poll I looked at disapproves of how Congress is handling its job. I think anyone who's in Congress right now should look at that and be worried. I mean, if they even care about public service, they are letting the American people down. And we as voters need to really ask ourselves, do we want to keep these people who are in there now in office for another 2 or 6 years? I mean, these are the real questions that every American should be asking him or herself moving into November 8th.
That's a great point. We don't spend enough time, I don't think, looking at the unpopularity of Congress. And that's been historically the case for the past 10 years, I think. But going back to Joe Biden, his own party, as he touched on, 56% of Democrats want him gone from office. They'd like another Democratic candidate. Anyone but not Biden. Even Jen Psaki, whose job it was to defend him at the podium, says if this midterm becomes a referendum on Biden, the GOP takes the House convincingly. So, do you think Democrats start right now, or maybe immediately after the midterms, start pushing other candidates for 2024?
Well, Tom, the crisis strategist and me, if I were advising behind the scenes, they should be quietly talking with him. Be a leader, show some leadership. he's, sorry, he's an aged person. And I'm not saying that people in their 70s can't lead in that role. But what I am saying is we've seen definite issues with his ability to deliver, to communicate. We saw that on the campaign trail, let alone since he's taken the office. So behind the scenes, some succession planning could be in order so that we're not just, the White House shouldn't allow the media to run this narrative. They should decide, leading up to these midterms, maybe after, week after the midterms happen, we see the results. They should be talking about this with Biden behind the scenes. I mean, this is a great opportunity to show some leadership and show, look, I want the next generation of the Democratic Party, in his case, the Democratic Party, to be groomed for future service as president. So that would also give him a really nice 2 years of just doing whatever the heck he wants and go out on a huge upswing. I mean, that would be my advice to him as a strategist.
Yeah.
So prevent any future crises and start the succession planning and then be bold. Then he can be bold for 2 years, Tom and Kevin, because he doesn't have to worry about getting reelected.
Has nothing to lose. I hope he's listening to you right now. The word extreme is used by both parties. Joe Biden uses that. Dems call Republicans extreme, even that they're dangerous people. Republicans call Democrats extreme for their policies. If this becomes a political case about pushing away from extremes and more to the middle, who wins in that contest, do you think? Which party?
Oh, my. That's an interesting question. I think there are facets of factions of each party that are really trying to be in the middle, but I don't think either party is winning. I mean, what's happening with that, you mentioned Roe v. Wade, I think the Democrats, that getting overturned, they're going to really try to take that to the bank on Election Day. But at the end of the day, that is kind of a resolved issue. I don't think anyone can really use it to their benefit when we have so many headlines on the economy, on inflation, on the price of food. And, pretty much every day you watch the stock market and you see that yo-yo show. So those are the kinds of headlines both parties really need to be worried about right now.
You mentioned that Congress is unpopular, but incumbents seem to be very successful. Is it about the money advantage, the name recognition? How do new candidates overcome this disadvantage?
New candidates really need to find a niche. They need to exploit that niche and get it out there across social media, across media if they can afford it, traditional media ads. They need to do the door knocking. I mean, that was part of Obama's appeal, is he had such a strong grassroots campaign. Also the time, it's also what's happening in the moment. The era was ready, that the decade was the one for a black man to be elected president. So all of those things were also going for President Obama. So the smart candidates right now across, state, local, as well as national offices are really trying to find that niche, not be status quo, not be cliche, and really stand out in the crowd. That's the only way you're going to beat an incumbent. And if you're sort of a no-name or not as recognized name, that's the only way you're going to win in any election. Yeah,
well, right now he's got to do something about his numbers. Joe Biden does, if he has any chance of not just in the midterms, but his own office in 2024. As always, we appreciate your perspective. Roshini Rajkumar, political strategist, attorney, and host of the Crisis Files podcast. Roshini, great to talk to you. Thank you.
You too. Thanks, Tom and Kevin.
All right.